Was the workload harder than you expected? If you could change one thing about Oxford, what would it be? The majority of people are posh and from private schools. I asked for you guys to submit some questions and queries for Q&A for this week's video, and I got like 50 responses, which is really cool. We're going to go through them all today, you know, the ones I've chosen anyway. Work stuff, social life stuff, tips for people joining university next year. There's loads. Use the timestamps. Hopefully you enjoy. Let's start with some anonymous ones. And the first one is, do you think Oxford made a mistake not accepting you the first time? No, I don't. The application I put in that time was not good enough. I got my feedback and I came really to the bottom of the admissions test, which I know is super important, even if my other stuff did well. Completely fair rejection. I had to work harder on myself and my application to get in the second time. It was quite interesting because one of our tutors shares different colleges that they tutor in. So they tutor in my college, Trinity, and Brasenose, the college I applied to the first time round. And so for one class, for whatever reason, we were with the tutor in Brasenose as opposed to her doing a class in our college, Trinity. And that was weird because that was one of the rooms in Brasenose we all walked in, and I could have been doing classics there. Opinion on people who only dare to write anonymously. Do you actually feel lonely at Oxford? This is a topical question because recently I went on BBC Oxford to talk about loneliness, and I'll put some of the clips in here.
Hello and welcome to South Today. Tonight on the programme, degrees of loneliness. Why students are 4 times more prone to feeling alone. In Oxford, students are a vital part of the community with more than 40,000 enrolled in the city's 2 universities. For Oxford University student Sam Kramer, sharing his experience on YouTube helped him cope. This video has been viewed almost 60,000 times on the platform. David Lum has been to meet Sam to find out how he's doing now.
You sometimes go back to your room and you just really feel aimlessness because you don't want to work and you just don't really feel like part of the community or the college, and you slightly feel invisible. It's a stressful time, and Oxford is a stressful uni anyway, so I think the work was exacerbating how I was feeling. How I was feeling was maybe exacerbating how I was performing my work.
What kind of reaction have you had, and why do you think it's been like that?
I think I've had a really positive reaction, probably because this is a way more common thing than people often talk about, and people from different universities were writing to me about slightly different issues of loneliness that they were feeling. So other Oxford students were writing to me feeling similar, which was there's a lot of work and I can't find the time to try and change my situation, but also my situation is making my work worse, which means I need to spend more time on it. And people from other universities were saying that they maybe just felt like a number, a statistic on the form, and they weren't easily able to make friends in their lectures and stuff because there were just so many people.
A survey of 10,000 students by the Higher Education Policy Institute revealed almost 1 in 4 are lonely most or all of the time. Sam, who will soon be starting the 2nd year of his course, says his YouTube posts have helped him make new connections.
I'm definitely feeling better now. You just have to give it time, I think, and sometimes friends will come from unlikely places.
David Lum, BBC South Today.
And I've spoken about this a few times since my loneliness video, but it's a good chance to talk about it again. I'm very happy that these days I'm not particularly lonely. I have plenty of really cool friends to hang out with. I'm doing very well. Work's picking up. Got plenty of stuff on, so that's not a problem. Of course, I made this video like in the middle of the year, start of the year. Did I feel lonely then at the time? Absolutely. But because I posted a few in a row about that kind of stuff, I got some YouTube comments and stuff like that, people being like, nah, you're kind of milking it now. My answer to that is simply, the videos were being received well, they were true, authentic emotions, and I think I was helping people. If you go through those videos, read the comments, I think people enjoy hearing someone's account of it. So, in answer to the question, do I actually feel lonely in Oxford? Now, no, feeling blessed that I don't feel lonely. At the time, yeah, when I was making that video, that was legit. Best part about not studying a STEM subject. This is funny to me because it comes across that this person thinks that like a STEM is the kind of degree that you do at uni, and then a non-STEM degree is like weird, and so you've got to like justify not doing a STEM degree, which is just not me. Like, I just do humanities, that's it, that's normal for me. But I find that funny. I like the fact that whenever I work for an hour, I mostly make progress, whereas I feel that some people who are doing their problem sheets, just as it was for my Maths A level, all this kind of stuff, you can be trying something, and if you're not making any progress, it's kind of just a waste of your time, as it were. Whereas for me, if I'm reading an article, by the end of the article, I know I have, like, used that hour somewhat practically. And for a STEM degree, it always feels like, to me, if you're like a natural genius, you can get everything done so quickly, you never spend any time getting stuck. And that would frustrate me in Maths A level, where I was, like, spending time more than a lot of my other friends who maybe picked it up more naturally, and I was like, well, waste of time, like, it should be so easy to get, but I'm not getting it. In a humanities degree, it just takes you as long as it takes to do the reading and then write it, and that is quite nice for me, because I don't feel like I'm particularly behind other people or ahead. It just feels that's the time it takes, and that's it. Although saying that, I've chosen 2 basically STEM options as much as possible in classics. So one of them is logic. It's basically a philosophy thing, which is kind of a bit like kind of verbal reasoning in a way, non-verbal reasoning, that kind of stuff. And I've also chosen a linguistics one where, again, you've got to just learn a lot of stuff and, kind of prove stuff, how one thing became another thing. So, yeah, I'm trying to flitter over a bit, but I like the fact that I mostly feel like I can make progress whenever I read something. Do you think that the tutorial system has been more useful in comparison with other widespread forms of university learning? Yes, absolutely. For those who don't know, tutorials are basically one-on-ones or two-on-ones, two of you with the tutor or professor, whatever you want to call them. And this is how a lot of the Oxford teaching is done. So every time I write an essay, I'll then have a tutorial, kind of to go through the essay. Speaking to older years, one of the things that some people do with tutorials is they can use that as a bit of a backup to if they don't do the reading. Because there's so much going on at Oxford, sometimes you don't have the chance to do everything in as much detail as possible, so you then go to the tutorial, and the tutor will kind of fill in the gaps for you. I think that's especially how it is for STEM subjects. We have a problem sheet, and then the questions you don't do, or you couldn't do, whatever it is, your tutor will then help you. And by the end of the tutorial, you should be able to do the whole thing, basically. And so you can be quite effective by not spending so much time on the reading for the essay or doing the problem sheets, as long as then you ask loads of questions in the tutorial. That's not necessarily the ideal scenario, but that's one kind of like stopgap solution that some people use. I've had quite a few tutors now in different terms for different subjects, and most of them provide really detailed feedback on time as well. Not all of them, and that is frustrating, but yeah, tutorials really are great. On a scale of 1 to 10, how stressful is Trinity? I assume you mean Trinity, probably the college, as opposed to Trinity term, which is the word for third term in Oxford. You have Michaelmas, Hilary and Trinity. That can get somewhat annoying when people are talking about this is happening in Trinity, and you don't know if you mean like in your specific college it's happening, or like in the third term. But if this kind of just means like being a Trinity student, how stressful has my last term been? It was more stressful at the start because I had 2 essays a week and other stuff. It mostly went down to 1 essay a week and other stuff in the second half of term. Also, I was spending a lot of time on like a secret project, which has paid off, and I'm starting on July the 11th. I try and film that is like adjacent to YouTube, very exciting. So that was also stressful, like prepping that. Luckily that came off. I would go for the first half of term, it was like an 8.5. It was like really quite pushing me to my limits. Still managed to get my work done and stuff. Not to the highest quality at all, but I did miss deadlines and stuff. I kept it consistent. The second half, it would go down to like a 6.9. Not quite a 7. Still quite stressful, but definitely relaxed. And I felt like I'd achieved a lot in that first half of term, so I could take a slight breather. Especially because you've got to enjoy it. I didn't have exams, so you've got to enjoy summer term that you don't have exams. Was the workload harder than you expected? In my first ever video that's still live on the channel, I made some more, but they're private now. I looked at the reading list I would get for Oxford, and I thought that was so reasonable. Then I started Oxford. Immediately you think it's super hard, then quite quickly you're like, actually this isn't too bad. But every term it's been a step up and a step up and a step up. And every term you think it's like not possible to do what they're asking you. You kind of get used to it and bumble through it a bit. Was the workload harder than I expected? No, I don't think so. Because I think I probably had a lot of imposter syndrome and stuff about it would be too hard for me. That's another thing I made a video about in the loneliness, homesick, imposter syndrome kind of video cycle. I don't know. I don't think it's been harder than I expected, but we've still got 3 more years. I'm on a 4-year course. So by the end, who knows how much harder it can get. They've got this nice comment. Thank you for that. How much pre-reading did you do before you started your course? And would you say it was essential? So they'll normally send you what to do. And in general, I think it is pretty useful to do. For my course, Classics, we had to do some translations of certain things. The problem with that is I wasn't really sure how to translate effectively and like learn the vocab and stuff. So I think I'll have to redo it again, basically, for my exams. I can't really speak for other courses. I think in general it is useful just to keep it ticking over. But, and hopefully that also answers Antonia's question of how much reading preparation did you do in the summer before you went? How much work do you have to do in the holidays? In the holidays in between terms, you have to probably do a bit more because you have exams at the start of every new term, testing you to make sure you retain last stuff's information, and also maybe some new stuff that they expect you to do in preparation for the new term. For my course Classics, we don't have exams at the end of first year. We have them kind of in the middle of second year, as it were. So this is an important summer for me to revise all the stuff I've done in the first 3 terms, keep it ticking over, as opposed to some of my other friends who would have exams now, don't basically have to retain any information. So it depends on your course. This holiday I'm having to do more work, but before you go, you've got to look at the reading list and see what they say. What course would you have taken if not for Classics? One other course that I think goes under the radar, because not all the colleges offer it and stuff like that, is PPL, which I think is Philosophy, Psychology and Linguistics. In Classics, I've taken a linguistics option, and you've also got to do compulsory philosophy, and that might be a really cool course because you don't have any of the classical texts. I do enjoy that stuff, but maybe that PPL course, and I could have done a lot of philosophy and linguistics, maybe not so much psychology, but I'm sure that also would have been interesting. Maybe I could have done language, something like that, modern language, but I'm pretty happy with the course I chose. Would you ever partake in union stuff, / have you? The Oxford Union is this big kind of like debating society. They talk about it being a home of free speech, where they basically just host really cool speakers. And I think it costs a few £100, maybe £200, £300, but it's a lifetime membership. Have I got a membership? No. Do I plan on getting a membership? No. In terms of the speakers, I'm sure there are some people who really would enjoy going to see 2 people a week, but for me personally, there aren't that many people that would get me out of bed and I'm that interested in going to see. And when there are some people that you want to see, you can kind of go as a guest of another member, so you just pay a one-time fee, which is maybe £10, something like that, to go see that speaker. And if the membership's £250, let's say, am I going to see 25 of these speakers? No. I went once this year, let's say go once every year, I'm paying 30 or 40 or £50 on average, in order to see the people I like the most. Other things about the union, people obviously try and get elected, which is cool for them, and people talk about hacking. Hacking is basically when you try and like write to everyone in your email list, text list, whatever, to get people to vote for you, and you're like trying to hack them. People in Oxford might think this is a bit toxic, and it can be very stressful for the people running, and you know, it can be awkward for you receiving a message feeling like you have to go to the union. It's not a big reason why I don't get membership, but I quite enjoy the fact that I don't have to be involved in voting, no sorry I'm not voting, this person getting offended because I didn't go to vote for them, whatever. And there's also kind of some debating stuff that goes in with the union, which is kind of separate, that's another part of the union again, but not too interested in that. As it happens, I know some people in the union have like reached out to me on Instagram, whatever, especially around the loneliness video, but just in general as well. So if that's legit, thank you very much for watching. Hi, if you're watching. If it was a cheeky hack to try and get me to vote. No, I'm joking. Yeah, the union's for the union people, but I'm not particularly a union person at all. Is it true the majority of people are posh and from private schools? I think our college, Trinity, which is something I only found out once I joined, that is like a college that has a lot of posh or private school people in comparison to other colleges. There are other colleges right on the other side, like Mansfield, I think, does the kind of 93% rule, which is 93% of the UK population is educated in the state sector, 7% is private, so they take 92% of their cohorts from state or grammar schools, at least 93, sometimes more I think. But I think our college is like more dangerously close to 50-50, which is pretty unrepresentative. So even then it's not quite the majority, but it's like pretty close. In general, it's never a majority, but probably closer to a majority in some colleges and aspects than it really should be. What aspect of university is overrated in your opinion? I think one thing that is overrated is the Oxford Union. You come in, this is something I'd heard about Oxford before, and it has been slightly underwhelming for me, in as much as I didn't decide to get a membership because I didn't think it would be worth it once I actually discovered what it really was. Yeah, I mean, throughout my channel I've talked about different things I've said are overrated at times. I thought the whole point of finding friends that you're really close to, whatever, was overrated at my loneliness video. Another thing I would add is, I definitely revered Oxford before I came up. I applied twice, I really thought it was going to be this amazing thing. And then you come here and it's kind of just like your life, you know what I mean? So that's been weird because I don't always feel day to day that I go to Oxford and this is like what it's all for and it's beautiful. Maybe the Oxfordness of Oxford, which I guess might be a good thing, that it's just basically a bit of a normal uni. Good question. If you could change one thing about Oxford, what would it be? One thing that I would like uni to be more like in general is just you're always meeting new people a bit more. You get to know your college, don't necessarily mix as a subject, that's not really a thing in lectures, doesn't really happen. Some people I think still have online lectures. But I've had loads of really cool moments basically, some of my highlights of the term and the year, of when I've gone to someone else's college with a friend, maybe someone spotted me from my videos I guess in the bar or something, and then we hang out for a few hours, whatever it is. It's happened a number of times now in different colleges, which is always really cool. And that kind of stuff is really fun. But I think it's hard to do sometimes, and to get lucky and kind of get these serendipitous chance moments that become something really cool. Maybe that's not even an Oxford thing. Maybe that's just a personal thing that I need to continue doing cool stuff and not just stay in my routine and always make an effort to try new things and stuff like that. But I think that's one thing I can improve on more, because whenever it happens, you're always wow, that's so cool. Have you ever submitted an Oxfess? Oxfess is the Facebook group where people can make a confession about Oxford anonymously. But no, never submitted one. And there are other ones as well. So there's another one called Oxlove and kind of Oxhate, which are your loves and hates about Oxford. And I was in one of those, so shout out to whoever wrote this. Are some courses harder than others? Do some people seem to have to work a lot harder than others? Yes, there is a disparity between how much work the courses are. I'll give you a really basic example that no one should have any problems with. If you do a joint honours course, or joint schools, you just do have more work. For example, some of my friends doing history and economics. So they're doing a bit of the history course and a bit of the economics and management course. And the people doing history and econ have to do all the econ stuff. So they've basically already done 50% of that course. They don't do any of the management. And then from the history course, in order for it to be roughly the same, you would hope for them to do about 50% of what the historians do. So you have 50 from history, 50 from E&M, economics management, makes 100. But they have to do roughly 3/4 of the papers that the historians do. So if you add that up, 75% and 50%, they're basically doing 125% as much as maybe the two respective courses. Same with different languages. I just do get the impression that you just do have to do more work. Law with European law, something like that, again, just seems like a bit more work than just straight law. Even within that, just the pure courses, so pure chemistry versus pure geography versus pure physics. Yes, I do think there is a difference in how much courses work, not just in terms of different parts of the year, but I think in general. I won't speculate on that because I only get in trouble when I speculate on that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think, especially with the joint honours courses, but even in the individual courses, yeah, there is going to be a disparity. Also, worth saying that even within your course, you can have a few options, and some options just are more time intensive than others, and you might not realise until you've picked it. It's just hard to know. Everyone works hard though, so like, you just got to deal with it, I guess. Question from Jack on the Instagram. Thanks, Jack. How have you found the social life at Oxford overall? Any particular highs and lows? As I've talked about before, the highs are always the things that you don't expect to happen. So you go to visit your friend at a different college, and then you bump into some other people, and then you go in a completely different direction to what you're expecting to do, you have a really great time. The most recent example of this is when I went after a society meeting to Balliol, which is the next door college, but I'd never been to before. My friend from that society with me invited a few of us over. I met someone in the college bar who had seen the videos. In the end, he takes us around Balliol. Good fun. It's happened a few other times. That's always the really fun bit. There are natural lows. When I made that loneliness video, that was a low. I think there just is an element of luck of whether you end up in the right college for you, and if you get on, and I don't know if there's much to do about that. Top tips for someone starting next year. First of all, good luck for your grades, everyone that's going to Oxford or any other uni. Top tips is be very open-minded and have very low expectations. How uni works out for you is likely to be very unique compared to other people, and also compared to how you imagine it to be. So you just got to be open-minded and really try and have as few preconceptions as possible, because then it can only be interesting and can't let you down. Jess asked, did you ever regret reapplying, like due to the workload and stuff? This is a good question, and I remember I watched an Eve Bennett video once where, probably like 2 years ago, she was saying like, you know what, this week I thought, I wish I'd never applied to Oxford. And so I thought I might feel like this, because obviously I applied twice, had to make a very active decision, do I definitely still want to go here? And although there have been really tough points of the course, there has never been a serious moment during the year, or before or after, where I've considered dropping out, or I wish I didn't go here. I knew what I signed up for. It has still been worth it. It's the best place for me. Get more clicks if you put the Oxford logo and name and title in your thumbnail, everything like that, compared to other unis. That's obviously a joke, but yeah, no, I think it's the right place. The workload's hard, but if you apply, you know what you're signing up for, more or less. Hopefully you do. Salsa Sauce asks, what is your impression of the other students and Oxford attitude? Will you say that Oxford lives up to any of the stereotypes? I wasn't really sure what to expect from the Oxford stereotypes, I guess all the posh stuff. Some of it does live up to the stereotype and a bit more. So for example, we have this ball next week, this big party in college. This is the one that the tickets cost a few £100 to hire white tie, which is a different attire to black tie, which in itself is super expensive, a different to a normal suit, because it's all to do with like the collar and everything like that, doesn't matter. That's another few £100 to rent for one night. That in itself is quite like an Oxfordy thing, I think. But because we have to have a white tie, I was surprised at the number of people who had white tie themselves, which either costs hundreds or thousands of pounds to buy, because, it costs £200 to rent. And what I mean by that is, it wasn't 0 people in the college. It was at least probably 3 people that I knew, which is quite crazy. And again, I think one guy has like a few different white ties for different occasions. He actually helped me out because he measured me up for my measurements in the end for when I was to go to rent it. He knows what he's doing. So I would say those people probably live up to the Oxford stereotype of how it would have been to go to Oxford 250 years ago. This is what everyone would have been, perhaps. The Oxford attitude, I've maybe been slightly surprised by how kind of normal everyone is, and not everyone is like so amazingly clever and working the whole time. Definitely there's some people are, but everyone's kind of normal people, and they procrastinate like normal kids. They have off days and submit off weeks, like worst pieces of work. Everyone's like quite, normal human, which has perhaps surprised me because I thought this would be like the creme de la creme de la creme of no one procrastinates, everyone's on it the whole time, and like people clearly are smart here to get in, but everyone's just a bit normal and has ups and downs with their work as well as other parts. There we go, hopefully that answers your question. And that's similar to Dina's question of, is the environment so competitive? It can be, and you hear stories in particularly competitive colleges about them fighting to get the same books out, so that the other people on their course can't do that. I don't think it's particularly competitive, unless people have like personal vendettas against someone else, but I don't know of any particularly in our college. Especially the classicists, I think we're quite collaborative. We sometimes hang outside of the classroom and go on trips together, whatever it is, which is like a nice thing that I don't take for granted. I think it makes a way nicer environment. Definitely share library books. Sometimes I tend to be the first person to do at least one of our essays in the week because of the order I choose to do my tasks in. So I take all the books out, and at the end of the year, there are a few cases of people obviously borrowed my library books. Like, they told me they took it out of the library but didn't return it properly, so the fines were going onto my account. But I think we got it all sorted. But yeah, like, it doesn't have to be competitive where I'm like, oh, let me return my book before you then borrow it out. Like, you know, everyone just mostly deals with it all together. It's all fine. Dark Academia asks, would you consider going to Oxford for a master's and or a doctorate? Right now, definitely not. Could that change in the future? Potentially. It probably won't. Cleaner asks, what would have been your second choice uni? So when I got rejected from Oxford the first time, I found Durham, so I guess it would have been Durham. Would I have had a good time there? Probably. I think I would have a better time at Oxford, so I'm glad I'm here. And Dark Academia also asks, is there anything you would change about the classics degree content if you could? I like the linguistics I can do, but it has to obviously be in reference to Latin and Greek, which are the two classical languages you learn. So we can't do any of the other fun linguistic stuff, talking about how people in English from different socioeconomic backgrounds speak, different races, cultures, religions speak, that kind of sociolinguistics aspect, or, you know, language acquisition in children, how does that happen? All this kind of stuff that I think will be interesting on the PPL course. Philosophy, psychology and linguistics you would learn, that I can't really do. There's a lot of text to get through. No one particularly likes it, but that's what you sign up for, and it's probably necessary to train you to then do more text in the future. So, like, it's long. You've got to do, like, I think I calculated about 25,000 lines or something of, like, you know, basically set text, which is insane because in A-level you have, like, 500 maximum. But no, in general, I quite don't mind the course. James asks, what is the best college bar and why is it Cats? James is one of the people that I met after going to the college with a friend of mine, and then we met him in the bar. Cats is actually a really nice bar, so shout out to James. Perfect example of, like, a friend you kind of meet randomly along the way, and then they get shout outs in the video. Mariam asked a few questions. What's your favourite Oxford tradition so far? I really do like the formal dinners. I think they're really cool. For the same price as normal dinner in our college, so roughly £5, you get 3 courses, you know, you all sit down, it comes, like, served towards you. Someone at the front has to, like, stand up and say grace, which is his prayer in Latin, which I was allowed to say once, which was super fun. And, yeah, you get bread and soup and then a main course dessert. I think that's brilliant. We've obviously, in our college, they've been repairing the dining hall right now, so it hasn't been in the super nice one, but it's just been in a different building, so it's not as, like, nice looking. But I think the concept of formals, which is like 3-4 times a week, is super cool. What do you think about the length of the terms? Do you find it's too much pressure? People say Oxford terms are 8 weeks long. In reality, they're 9 weeks because you have a North week and week at the start where you get tested on the stuff you're supposed to have memorised over the summer from last term in prep for the next term, whatever. It's short and it is intense. I think in reality I would like longer terms that are a bit more relaxed, because why not? It's fun. And in general, I find when I come home, you probably don't work as well because you're in the home environment, you're not in the Oxford environment where you're in the library opposite your friend and you're just motivating each other to work. Oxford, the last week of term is always super nice because you've probably submitted your final piece of work on, let's say, the Wednesday, and if you're leaving on the Saturday, you basically have the rest of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday to kind of chill with friends, go around, which is always super nice. It's not too much pressure because people get it done, but yeah, it would be nice to have it longer if that meant there were less work. Is the nightlife really dead at Oxford? Possibly, not sure. I'm not really a nightlife person either way. I know some people from Oxford go to, like, London for their nightlife, like go down on the Friday, come back on the Sunday. You know who you are, I know you're watching, shout out to you. Does college rivalry exist? People talk about the Trinity Balliol rivalry, which, you know, and name different things that happened before, for example, like, we killed their fish in the pond, or they did whatever to us. In reality, nope. People joke about it, not a thing at all. Kind of would be fun if it was actually an authentic thing, but no, not like that. Kind of a bit of a shame, really. People force it more than ever being, you know, a thing that actually happens. People maybe joke about the colleges that are far away, about being a bit worse, and, you know, oh, you're unlucky to go there. But in terms of, like, the historic rivalries between specific colleges, it's not a thing. Fatima says, do you think that private school kids are more adapted to Oxford teaching than state school kids? It's a good question. Hard to know because you can only know your own experience, and you can't think what your experience would be like if it were different. So yeah, I'm really not sure. Tentatively, yes, probably. But you'd hope that very quickly, Oxford, because they just take the best minds no matter where they come from, and train people with the Oxford framework, that especially by the time you get to the end of your first year and your first set of exams, it shouldn't make a difference, even if you've been adapted a bit better to start with. All I know is in classics, you do get disparities that kind of stick most of the way through, depending on where people have gone. So, for example, if people go to special schools that taught them Latin and Greek since the age of, let's say, 7, and someone else has picked it up age, 16, by the time you join Oxford, and even at the end of your Oxford degree, you just are going to be at a high standard. which is a bit unfair, but, you know, as people would say, I guess, life is unfair, and if you're good enough to get in, you're probably good enough to do the course. But in general courses like PPE, philosophy, politics and economics, you would hope that it's kind of just generic enough that it shouldn't make too much of a difference. It's not like you're just literally better at the language, and obviously that's just going to help because you're going to get through the text quicker, you're going to be better at your translation, all this kind of stuff. Sean asks, how long did it take you to fully get settled into university lifestyle? Have you got any tips on how to adapt to the challenges of more independence, etc.? The real answer is, do I think I've adapted even now? Possibly not, not sure. I've definitely got more used to it, and I would say it was about my birthday, which was February time, which ironically was when I posted the loneliness video and those kind of videos, because like I recorded it before and I felt a bit better now. I would say that's when I kind of started to really get into the groove. It took me more than a term. When I came back the second term at the start, I still was not used to it at all. I feel very comfortable with it now. And in terms of the tips on how to adapt to the challenges of more independence, which is similar to Srini's comment about tips for freshers, I would say even as you're learning, I would say you've just got to enjoy the ride. It does get stressful, but I promise you, as soon as you're back home for 10 days after the term finishes, you're going to wish that you're back up there and had enjoyed the term more, even if it is quite high-pressured. So just try and enjoy the ride, because if you're always wishing for the term to be over or the essay to be over because it's stressful, like what's really left at the end, you know, you've got to enjoy the going through of everything. But the other thing I would say is, which is something I talked about in one of my most recent videos, is even though you go to Oxford now, you've got in, congratulations, don't give the course too much respect. I think it's very easy to get into the mindset of, I go to Oxford, the course must be so hard, I have to spend all my time on it. Oxford do not want you to be spending all your time in work and all your stress, because also, just from a work point of view, you'll burn out by third week, and you won't be able to survive the 8 weeks. So those are the two pieces of advice. Be very flexible and enjoy the time whilst it's there, and similarly, don't respect the course too much. If it's actually seeming not too hard, like not insanely impossible, that's probably because it is not insanely impossible, and do the work to the best standard you can, but, you know, don't spend too much on it for first year exams that don't count anyway. There we go. That's the Q&A. That was really fun. Thank you all for submitting the questions. Any follow-ups, please leave in the comments. But I think next week I'm going to film that video about the ball and hopefully edit it, which should be really fun. So stay tuned for that. If you want to see a review of one of my terms at Oxford University, you can press here. But apart from that, I'll see you in the next one.